let's see how this works out. All right, 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 let's see how this works out. Okay, let's try this. 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 For anybody watching, I apologize. I haven't been doing that well, so 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 I haven't been doing that well, so. Testing, testing, testing. The question, the question, the question. Testing. Okay, so.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think
so.
we're good. Yeah, I
Okay,
think
so.
we're good. Yeah, I 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 think.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a title. First, let me let some folks know what I just did. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to start with what will be the working title. It's not going to be the permanent title, but this is going to be the title we're going to start with for right now, and we'll make some adjustments as we go along. I'm just going to go with the title character. So right off the bat, this is a character from the first book, which is not published yet, but I'm in the process of getting that done. So this is going to be a best way to put it. This is not really a prequel to the whole story, to the actual first book, but it's just going to be another book in what I guess now is going to be a series. In this particular book, we're going to go into kind of the backstory of one of the characters in that first book. So, character Mihal is essentially a sorcerer. So, starting off with him, I already know where the end point is, where his story finishes. I know where this particular story is going to finish, where the end point for this individual book will be. So it's really just a matter of how do I start? Where do we go from here? Typically what I did for my first book, and what I will probably be doing with this as well, is as I'm writing and just getting my ideas out there and just writing, the story as I go along, when I reach a stopping point, a point where it's like, hey, listen, I think I'm good for the day, or I think I've kind of run out of juice for the day, what I'll do is I stop, and then I'll write a title for the next chapter. Or the next chapter I'm going to start, so that for the next session, the next writing session, I know roughly where I wanted to go, what the general gist of what I want to do in that next writing session will be. That doesn't necessarily mean that the title headings that I put there are going to stay the title headings. In fact, I'll probably remove all title headings. But the title headings that I put for each chapter are really to help me know where I wanted to go ahead and pick up and what I wanted to do for the next writing session. So, right off the bat, we're going to start with this. And for this start, for the beginning, I'm going to start for this character, not at the very beginning, so I'm not really going to go into the birth and history of where he's from, but we'll start with him. I'm thinking in adolescence, so we'll probably start there and go from there. So to give some background, some understanding, some ideas about the character Mihal, when I first wrote what I did have about him in the first book, the idea, the inspiration for the character, as far as visually, was I don't know if you've ever seen the actor Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa. Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa is an Asian actor, I believe Japanese descent. He is, if you've seen the movies Showdown in Little Tokyo, or Rising Sun, or more popular, if you've seen the Mortal Kombat movie, the very first one, he plays Shang Tsung. So that was actually the inspiration for the visual inspiration for this character. So that is where we're going here. So I will no doubt make a lot of mistakes, both grammatically and just the way structure should be set up for writing a story. But that's okay, because as I go through, I'll go back in and clean things up and change things around, and that's just the process of writing. So having said that, let's actually start writing. So where do I want to start? Setting a scene.
And I'll say right off the bat, a lot of my characters, in fact, most of the characters, the primary characters in all throughout the book, the first book, in some way, shape, or form, there's a little bit of me in the characters, in all of them. Either a little bit of me or a little bit of someone I know, or someone I'm close to, or someone that I'm inspired by. Most of them have a bit of me in them. So I'll probably be pulling a lot from my own experience or some things that have affected me as I'm writing, and Mihal in particular. So I have a lot of ideas about where I want to start with him and what his adolescence and young adulthood are like. A lot of that will be pulled from some of the things that I've experienced or adaptations of what I've experienced, and then translating that into a fantasy setting. So it's a lot of talking, not a lot of writing. So where do we begin? Well, you begin with words on a page. Yeah. And yes, going back to English, starting a paragraph. There should be an end there. Okay. English teachers, if any of you remember who I am, will probably be rolling over in their graves right now. If they're dead, if they're alive, they'll wish they had been dead. Like, oh my gosh, can't believe I actually talked to him and he's actually writing. Oh, he's terrible. I thought I'd tell him better than that. Oh, so. Okay. Oh, hey, glad you stopped by. I appreciate you even bothering to say anything at all. So, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. You'll also forgive me. I have a tendency to lean forward. I'll try to do that less, so you can see me. Not that you really want to see me much, but hey, here we are. uh, see, there's grammatical errors already. I'm searching for a name that's suitable for the setting, but also that fits and that I haven't used somewhere before. Hmm. No, no. This is funny because I want to use a name that fits. I don't want it to sound overly fantastical or overly made up. Um, but I also want it to be a name that's, I don't know, it has to feel right. It's the weirdest thing for a character that's not even going to be super integral going forward. But it's funny the things that actually seem to matter right now that in a year will probably seem meaningless. Hmm. Why not? right, so uh, to give some context and some understanding and an idea, um, Kendall will not be a. I'm just setting this up now, so he's not going to be a major character playing a major role, but he has his part to play in the earlier sections of this, and the events happening here will obviously shape some of how Mihal sees himself and sees other people. And yes, there's at least one spelling error, and I'm not even going to bother to address it right now. I'll Google the right word for it later. Um, but this will be setting up a trend for Mihal going through his early years and his early adult life as well. So, all right. Okay. Hmm. Hmm. Mm-mm. Mm. No. Mm. No. Hmm. Spell that word wrong. We'll get to it later. How do I do that? Appreciate it. Will do. Okay. So, taking a pause for just a moment. So we're setting a little bit of a groundwork here. The temptation is to just rush through this early part, the earlier first years, just kind of get through this and get past this so I can get to some other things. But I do want to spend time here and establish a pattern, not necessarily a pattern of behavior as much as a pattern of experience. And not just from one individual, not just the morning, but a pattern or experience from multiple sources early on. So let's pause for a bit. Give my brain time to assemble a few things, and a chance to elaborate a little bit on some of the actual the setting itself. Because as I go further into the story, we'll begin to expand and actually explore more of the overall setting itself. But for those who have a chance to actually join me on the stream or see this later, I can give just a little bit of context. So this story takes place on the world of Spira. So obviously not Earth. This world has been separated into a number of different continents. The crown of the world is the northern cap. The Great Ring is a set of continents, really kind of connected. It looks like the way that the land structures are shaped is like one large ring, with an inner sea, and then the ocean outside is called the outer sea. There's another continent called Faland, and so that's its own section to the west of the Great Ring. And then there's the southern continent, which is unnamed. It's just the southern continent. It's just, as far as anyone knows, an ice shelf. And later, there is a large mountainous spike in the center of the Greater Sea that's called the Spear of the Gods. But that comes later and is actually a direct result of things that are going to take place in this story. So, before I go much further, I want to take the time to establish for myself where certain things are taking place so that everything kind of fits in line. As far as Mihal, I know the bulk of his early story begins on the continent of Faland. But I need to check my notes, make sure that the time frame fits as to when the name of the continent became Faland, because that was not its original name. And I'm thinking, I'm going to check my own notes because I have them, making sure that I keep these things in order. What do we have? Okay. Good. There. So have I set the when? Taroland was the original name before it became called the Fouled Land, and then it was shortened to Faland. So I do have that. But what I want to see is, let me look back and see where. See if I can. Let's go back a bit. I think I know where I have it in the story. See where we are. Not there, not there. Where are we? Okay. Okay. So we have established that. Okay. So 500 years or so before the advent of the beginning of the actual first book, which would put, and since that war happened about 200 years before, and Mihal was around for that. So, okay. Given that, yeah. Elves live long enough. He is not an elf, but right. Okay. Okay. That helps. They give you something to work with. So, knowing that Mihal's story, the main parts of the early, or at least the early parts of the story, take place in Faland, and yes, they do take place 100 or so, a little over 100 years before. There's a particular war that takes place, and his story takes place about 100 or so years before that, but a couple hundred years after Faland actually became Faland. So, okay, so I know when roughly this is taking place. Okay, so I know how much time frame, and I know that I can continue to refer to it as its current name because that would actually fit where he was at this point in the story. Good. Okay. So getting these things established so that they don't become an issue later. So here we are. Also, while I'm at it, yes, going to save you. Here. A new folder. Good. I'll save this there. Okay, so save the document because I'm not about to start all this writing and then turn around and realize I didn't save it. Something happened, y'all gets wiped out, because that would be frustrating. So let's continue. Yeah. I'm gonna do this. Did I do that? Yes, good. Right. I'm creating that separation there because that's for a visual representation for me, so I can keep track. This is setting up, establishing, hey, this is the typical morning, this is what's happening, this is whoever our main character is, this is what his typical morning looks like, this is something he's going through. Let's just see how much of he goes through. And we continue from here. So that's its own little segment there that's setting some things up. We're going to set some other things up here. So same day, but getting past that first part. Okay. Name for school. Name for a village. School might not have a name. It'd just be the school. Because the town or village, even if it's more than a village, even if it's a full town, we're not talking modern cities, we're talking a town. It may have a number of families, enough people in that town to have a number of different shops, some businesses, and a number of families around there, and they probably do have one or two different temples and or churches for at least one or two different religions may be there of the number that may exist in the world. Not a large enough town to probably have representation from every one of the different gods there, but more than likely at least one, and very probably two. And definitely enough people, enough families, enough children to warrant the necessity for a school, but not enough for multiple schools or in subdivisions. So this town isn't that big. So let's establish the name of the town then, because we'll need to be able to reference it, because we'll have to come back to it and travel through it. So a good name, something that fits. after, so they wouldn't be near the interior. It's before that war, so they'd probably be nearer to the coast. They might not actually be on the coast, but it's near to the coast on either side of the island, but definitely wouldn't be in the interior. So it wouldn't be near any one of the rivers. So I don't want to use that coastal village I use in the actual book because that's its own thing. So let's see what's. I do want to use that. Okay. Yep, I'll use it. Mm. Mm. For now, we may rework later. Hmm. See, this is. It's funny. It's one of those things where you don't want to contradict yourself if you've already written something about a thing, but at the same time, you have the opportunity because you've already written something to use what's there. Find ways to use it to inform how you write what comes next. So let's see. Let's see. Excellent. Excellent. Perfect. Okay. So there is the northeastern shore. This is the southern. Excellent. Brilliant. This was beautiful. And specifically awesome because of what's in the south on this particular continent. So, uh, okay. Okay, Ashen Shore. So, why Ashen Shore? In the lore of the world, um, so there are the greater gods, the outer gods, and then there are the lesser gods. And the lesser gods created by the greater gods, essentially to watch over and keep a certain measure of balance in the world. One of the first sentient races or races of beings or creatures to become sentient and gain a great deal of prominence and power, after, of course, the lesser gods were the dragons. So there were dragons, and later on there were the different races of men, elves, half elves, half orcs, uh, goblins, all these types of creatures. They all exist. At some point, dragons, having been around for a while, having gained a great deal of understanding and how to use magics, and themselves being imbued with a certain level of just magic, decided for themselves that they should be godlike. They should be immortal. They were long lived, living for many centuries, and they were powerful. There were enough of them. They thought, of course, obviously, we should be godlike. And they decided that they would assault the gods, one in particular god, and they paid for it. So they were struck, and so a third of them were struck down. I mean, literally struck to the earth and reduced near to ash. Another third were struck down, and a third of their power lost, and they lost the ability of flight, and a great deal of their intelligence and power and vitality was lost, and from them stemmed the races of Yuan-Ti and Snake Men. So that's there. The first third, the third that had been struck and had been essentially obliterated, their bones, what was left of them, turned to ash and turned to what became essentially a lot of it petrified, but the magic that was still there and it was corrupted, but also was affected by the power of the god that struck them. That act left its imprint in the land, specifically in the southern regions of the land on the continent of Falanda. That's just one of the many things that have happened on this particular continent. The result is that in the southern regions of the continent, along other areas, but mostly concentrated in the southern region of the continent, there is the sand is black, and it's black, and it's there's a heavy concentration of magic just inherent in the sand, and so that sand is often used as a reagent in certain magical rites and rituals. It's used, in fact, in blacksmithing. Sometimes blacksmiths who are extremely highly skilled will use some of the black sand in the forge to imbue certain objects that they're forging with a bit of added magic. And so it's also used in other places, like sometimes the people who were using it in some of their airships the black sand is used for a number of different things. But that black sand and the way it looks and the effect that it has on the land is why the name Ashen Shore. This small town being near the southern region of the continent, near the coast, yes, a lot of the land there would be, yeah, a lot of the sand in the ground near there would still see traces, many traces of the black sand there. So it would look like ash. It would seem like the coast is covered in ash, but it's not. The sand is just blackened from the power in what happened. And it happened so long ago. Like no one currently alive and was alive during the time when this happened. This happened well over a few thousand years before the events of the main story and events of this story. So it is known what happened, but only in legend and lore and because of the information that has been intentionally passed down by certain dragons who have a tendency to want to involve themselves in the affairs of the mortal men. When I say men, I'm not saying just humans, but any of the men. It would be elf men, dwarf men, any of the peoples of the world. So, but anyway, that's why I decided on the name Ashen Shore, at least for now. So, okay. Okay. So, let's see. Let's see. Okay. There's another P in that word, if I'm not mistaken. Watch me be mistaken. Oh, you know, it wasn't. Let's see. East. Okay. temples of Ren and Iyandel. Ren and Iyandel have already been established as two of the lesser gods. So the greater gods being Kron, that which represents time, Vaj, that which encompasses space, and Spectra, that which encompasses energy. And then, of course, the lesser gods, Solus, Iyandel, Ren, Neitha, Igzul, Dolder. These are the lesser gods. Iyandel being a god usually associated with artists and associated with whimsy and dreamers and musicians. Ren being god of the oceans, but also god of magic users and of artifice. Dolder being a god of strength and valor. Igzul being a god of conquest, domination, and conflict. Solus being the god of sun and birth and spring and harvest and celebration. Neitha being the goddess of death and often misunderstood as the goddess of death. She is not the goddess of death in that she is in death and decay and evil and horrible and mean. And a lot of people may mistake that, but no, she's the goddess of death, and she's the goddess of completion, the finishing of things. She's also considered the goddess of lust, the goddess of winter. She's the goddess of completion, the fulfillment of things. In fact, the last month of the year, Ni time, is named after her. The first month of the year, Sol's time, is named after Solus, and it is they are considered to have an interesting relationship, the two of them, because they meet at the tail end of the year, and so he is the beginning, she is the end. It is often said that when people are on their deathbed, people who they've gotten older and they're sick, but especially for children who are dying, that she will come and sit at their side and comfort them as they pass on, as they die. So she is not about being mean and cruel and hateful and vile and evil. She is the goddess of death as just a natural part of existence, as a natural part of the process, as the completion of life, and so that is who she is. Anyway, so that's just some of the information about them. So, and that's just to give you an idea that yes, some of these names I didn't have to think of because they already exist. I have already established them. And yes, for the record, if anybody's wondering, I do already have a copyright for all of that information. It's all in the first book, which I have already copyrighted, so that's already been done. Right. Ah, thank you for informing me of that. I can attempt to adjust that. Can attempt to, anyway. That may be more me than the actual. Uh, right. Okay, let's see. Yeah. Oh. Uh, not. That'll work. There is no A at the beginning of that word. No. Baka. See, back to the English teachers being a little upset with me again. See, spelling. It's not what I get paid for, ladies and gentlemen. That's better. That is not better. That's better. Yeah. Word use. It's another thing that comes to be a bit of an issue here, but once again, I think we can address later. There should only be two N's in that word. There should probably not be another N in that word. probably isn't necessary for this separation here, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Okay. Yes. Also, because, yeah. Yeah. Actually, writing the same way as I do in RPG, I save often. Because don't want to do this over again more times than I'm already going to have to due to the editing process. Okay. do that a second time. There should be an E in that word. Okay. So taking another break for the sake of both my eyes and my brain. Give my brain time to start pulling together some more ideas of where I want to go next with this. Not that we've put down a large bit of information here yet, but still, I want to be purposeful in what gets put in the page. I think if anything, I want to err on the side of too much information, putting too much here. I want to put too much, to have too much there. The more I have there, yes, easier to edit when there's something on the page, right? And the more I have there, you don't. And this is the analogy that's been used before, and I'll use it here. A person who is a sculptor doesn't take a bit of clay and to build a sculpture, begin to shape it and then add more on and shape that and add more on. You start with a large lump of clay and you begin to shape and mold and you remove what you don't need And the more you remove, the more you take away of what's not necessary until you begin to reveal the piece and what it really is. And once it's really revealed to the artist, to the sculptor, it's revealed to him, and then he or she refines that thing. To steal a phrase from Bruce Lee, you hack away at the inessential, that which is not necessary. But to do that, you have to have something more, something substantial to work with, to pull from, to begin to sculpt, to begin to shape down into its proper form. So I want to have more here. Having said that, I also want to make sure that I have some direction. I want to make sure that what I'm writing, that I'm understanding the purpose, that the things that are here are to serve a purpose, that they're setting up something. So, to get those thoughts out in the open, Mihal is a sorcerer in this world. Until Mihal, for the most part, there were no sorcerers. There were mages and wizards, and people used magic, but none of the mortals, humans, elves, orcs, dwarves, none of them had innate ability to use the magic. Elves have longer lifespans, dwarves have somewhat longer lifespans, and so that there's something to that. But as far as the ability to innately just use magic, cast spells, and do things, no one has that innately except dragons. Mihal is one of the earliest true sorcerers. It is because of what happens in his story, what's going to happen later on, is why he becomes a sorcerer. And so that's the thing that's going to happen. But before then, he will at some point in time go to the mage college. He will learn appropriate magic. But even before then, he will have this fascination because he got to see some of the effects of it watching his mother work the black sand in the forge at the blacksmith shop. So this is kind of setting up his draw to magic, and to that aspect of it. But having said that, well, that's his draw to the magic, and so we're setting that up here. There are some aspects of some of the things that he experiences, things he's seem like a pattern in his life of how he's regarded, how he is treated, that are going to affect what drives him to do the thing he does to attain the magic that makes him a sorcerer. And so that has to be set up as well. And all of these things are tied in very much with specifically where the actual physical location plays a part in that, major part in that. The land they lived on is called the Foul Land. It's called Faland because of a lot of the things that have happened there that have essentially practically cursed the continent. And so where they live on that eastern part of the continent, there is the most inhabited and inhabitable area, but it's most of it is it's more like tropical. It's beachfront. There's beaches, and this is where they live. It's by our standards in our world, we would see it as kind of like, hey, this is like a island paradise, like going to the beaches in Cali and Florida. It's it's that beachfront property. This is the beach towns. This is what you would think of as what it looks like. But this is the only places where most people actually live are along this eastern coast of the planet, of this continent. The serpent folk live on the northern western part of the continent, and the entire central part of the continent, you don't go there. You do everything you can to avoid having to go through there. That larger portion of the continent, you avoid. Unless you absolutely have to be there, you avoid it. And so, but like I said, all that, the black sand and the what's it called, the dragon sand, is all along the lower coast and the lower part of the continent. So it's there and it's used, and not just used there, but it's used and it's also shipped to different places around the planet, around the world, where other people, other forge masters and wizards and other peoples use it as well. So it becomes something that some of the towns that are even further south that's kind of where they make most of their money, is refining and actually selling off that black sand. And so all that plays a part, and it's definitely going to play a part more. So establishing Mihal's attraction to magic is important. Establishing his treatment and some of the things he experiences and why that kind of drives him to do the specific things he chose to do, take the path he chose to acquire the magic that he does gain. Establishing the why is important. So I'm trying to make sure that those things happen. Also, for anyone who hasn't, obviously because no one has yet, read the actual original book, going to have to seed in information about the world as we go in this story. Because it's very possible that even after the first book is published, there's some who may not read the first book, or they may read the second book first. And so having to seed some of that in, but at the same time not trying to retread all the same material that we've already done in the first book. So it's that fine line. So and yes, I am doing a whole lot of speaking and a lot less typing right now, but it's me making sure that I have a good focus and that I understand for myself what I am doing and why I'm doing it the way I'm doing, and I'm taking my time with it. I'm not going to rush through this, because if I'm going to bother to do it, then I'm going to bother to do it as good as I possibly can. So I'm going to take the time. But hopefully, if anyone's watching this, that being able to see this, it will, if anything else, hopefully maybe inform your process, or at least it'll help you begin to define for yourself what your process is for creation and how and why you do the way you do for your process. So, and I am by no means a great expert. I haven't written 30 or 40 novels and don't have, decades of experience doing this. But I'm doing this. So, right. Also, my aunt was calling me just now. That was the phone buzzing there, and I hate to not answer family immediately, but I'll have to call her back and then apologize for not picking up right away. I did see that, and I'm not ignoring, but I do want to make sure that I stay on task, and I'll come back to that later in case she happens to see this as well. Love you, Auntie. Okay. Right. Mm. Aha, another reason we take time to pause so that we can reread what we just wrote, and that informs, hey, you know what? There's something I should have done earlier. Let me go do it, which means we scroll up. So while they're not going to be here for a great deal of the story, they are important enough that they should have names. So might as well name them and then be able to refer to them by name. So his mother and father have names. As if I had to guess where this one's going to be. To the family you know. have established a thing. And yes, there's a reason that mattered right there. It is because right here. Okay. Mother's probably gonna be furious. Yeah. Quite. 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 I mean, the places we pull from. There's no A in that. And also there is, because it's possessive. Yeah. See? How do I do that? Okay. So, aside, my mother will probably berate me profusely for not being 100% sure how to spell her middle name. But how often do we spell our mother's middle names? In any event. So, why is this important? Why does this matter? Because I want to establish that while Mihal has had to deal with, and we will see much further on in greater detail, some negative treatment that he suffers and some of the things he goes through. I'll be blunt saying it. He gets bullied, he gets mistreated, he gets treated horribly by some people, but not at home. He has a good home life. He has loving parents, supportive parents, and he has a good support structure at home. Outside the home, it's not so great, and that just becomes a pattern. Things aren't always great. But I want to establish that at home there was joy. There was something to be pleased with there. So, also establishing mom and dad weren't deadbeats. They weren't broke. And no, he didn't come from a magical family. They were super magic. No, he was not an orphan. And no, his dad didn't become the Dark Lord, the Emperor, or something like that. No, we're not going that route. So we have avoided those tropes. We'll probably fall headfirst into some other ones, so we'll see. uh, hmm. like the wording there. Don't like that word either. Yeah. Okay. Hey now. Sometimes not always 100% confident with the wording, or don't always necessarily feel right about the wording. You're not always sure what it is about the wording that you don't quite feel right about or not 100% about. But you put down what you have, so at least you have something on the page, because you can always come back, refine it, change it, switch it up. Or as you continue writing, as you get further along, when you come back to it, you may find that it actually fits in place better than you originally anticipated. And so take the time to think it through, but I don't want to dwell on it too long. Get it on the page, keep it moving. Oh, yeah. And save often. Also, I'm going to do this as well. Eh. No, I won't. I won't. I won't. It just looks weird. Okay. I'm trying to find a way to do this right. In my head, I'm picturing a mashup for anybody who's seen a mashup between, if you remember, and I'm dating myself here. If anyone remembers the movie Willow, when the wizard comes to town and he comes to test the aspirants. Now take that scene, put that aside, put off to the side, hold that there. Picture that, and then go to Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 90s. And the scene where Van Helsing is actually giving his speech to the men at the college about the diseases of Venice and the venereal diseases, and talking about the vampire bat. Take those two scenes and mash them together, and that's what I'm picturing in my head for this lecture. And so the visiting wizard, I'm absolutely picturing Anthony Hopkins. The things that come into our heads, man. We are influenced. Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate you keeping me informed on that. Some of my previous videos I've done have turned out well. Others, I've gone through the whole video and didn't find out until after it was done. I saved over to YouTube that there was no audio, and so getting the audio right with the for anybody who does watch this after the fact, I'm using XSplit for the video capture and for all the stuff for the Twitch channel. So XSplit sometimes doesn't always want to act right, and so getting the audio is sometimes the hardest part of this. But yeah, we'll continue to advance as we go on. We'll get better at this. But I appreciate you checking in with me on that and let me know. Thanks, man. So to set a scene, to also edit when you realize something obvious. Let's see. How are we playing this out? I know how I'm doing this. Well, I know I'm starting this. One, don't need a tab because we're doing another slight break here, because what we're going to do, we're going to start from, we're actually going to do the lecture. So we're literally going to start from the lecture. Okay then. Yes. something obvious. Okay. No. There are two L's in that word. I said L's, not spaces. Oh, bugger. Now, if you're wondering, there. Yes, I am Googling every time there's a word I want to use and I'm not 100% sure I spell correctly. Why? Because somebody invented Google, so I'm going to use it. They have not even seen snow, so. But they had seen that. There's no A in that word. So, all right. That'll work. And here is where I do my break of sorts. Let's do this. So something fitting, suitably ridiculous, but fitting as an idea for what we want to do in the next session. No, no. Nah, that's two in the nose. No, can't use that. Hilarious, but no. There we go. And we have the title for the next chapter. That is obviously not going to be the title for the next chapter, but it gives me an idea of what we want to be doing in the next section we'll be writing for our next session. So I'm going to end here. I said from 5 to 9. It ain't 9. We'll roll with it anyway. I'm going to go ahead and stop for the night. I am going to put a pin in this, and looking forward to being back on stream again soon. My schedule is, again, between the hours of 5 and 9 on Monday, but that doesn't mean that I won't hop back on sooner than then if the mood strikes me, but I'll definitely send a message to folks when I do. Got these juices flowing, so now I'm kind of excited to see where this goes next or what we do next. Thank you for those who stopped in to kind of see what was going on and check this out. I greatly appreciate that. For anyone who bothers to watch the video after the fact on YouTube, thank you for checking it out. And I hope you will continue to check this content out and enjoy the journey with me as we go through writing this story, and we'll see how this plays out, and we'll learn about the soon-to-be Sorcerer Mihal. Until then, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, stay good, and good night.